Hello from Lost Coast Redworks, the creators of the Titan level sponsorship plaques. First of all, we would like to congratulate you on receiving your plaque, and in this video, we are going to be going over how to install these wall anchors and screws into your drywall or studs. Now, let's go over the hardware that you have in your plastic bag. The first thing that we're going to do is go over the screws and anchors. If you received the Epoxy River plaque, you're going to have one screw and one anchor, but if you have any of the other plaques, you're going to have two screws and two anchors. As you can see on these screws and anchors, they are both going to be what is known as a Phillips head with that plus design. The first tool you're going to have is your Phillips head screwdriver. The Phillips head screwdriver will help us to screw in the anchors and the screws. The next thing you're going to want to have is a level. If you don't happen to have a level, if you have an iPhone, the Measure app has a level feature, and I'm sure on other devices it's the same. The next thing you're going to want to have is a drill and a hole drilling drill bit. This is going to help us to put that initial hole into the drywall or stud to help you screw in your anchors. And then finally, a hammer. The hammer is going to help us sink that initial anchor into your drywall or stud. This part of the video is going to be for the River plaque. If you have the River Epoxy plaque, this one's going to be for you. The first step we're going to do is drill our initial pilot hole, which is the hole that we drill in before we screw anything in. Now, you want your pilot hole to tend to be smaller than the screw you have. If it's too big, the screw will basically do nothing. So we're going to have our drill here with our drill bit that should be smaller than our screw. We're going to have a spot that we're going to mark on our wall that we're going to drill in. We're going to say it's going to be this dot right here. We're going to take our drill and we're going to drill into the wall. Again, keep in mind, this is for studs only. You have to find your studs for this one. If you're trying to use drywall for this, it's not going to work, because that is what the anchors will be for. This is going to be just the screw. So now that we have this pilot hole, we can take our screw and we can kind of use our fingers to set it up a little bit. And then you take your Phillips head screwdriver that we talked about earlier and you just start to screw it in. Now, you can use a drill for this. However, if you use a screw, you're able to be a little bit more precise and kind of choose where you want to go with it. So we're just going to keep on screwing this in here. And then eventually, once you feel like you're at a good spot with it, you can start to test the depth of the screw with your plaque. So we're going to take our plaque here. We're going to line up the keyhole on the back. The big side is where the screw is going to go into. So we're going to line it up. And then it's going to haul down and rest on it. So that's how it is now. However, if you run into an issue where you feel like it's hanging off your wall too much and you want to close that gap, what you're going to do is take off the plaque, pull up and out, and then you're just going to keep on doing tightens of your screw until you feel like it's at a snug place that you're comfortable with. I would say I'm pretty comfortable with that, and now that it's on the wall, you can kind of adjust it however you want and it should stay. That's how you're going to put a screw in for a stud on the River plaque. The next thing we're going to go over is putting in any of the other plaques that are mounting holes set up where there's two. Now, the way that we're going to go about this, we're going to need our level here because we want to make sure that our plaque is level on the wall. So the first thing that we're going to do is kind of put the plaque where we feel like we're going to want it on our wall. Now again, I only have this piece of wood as a test. I don't really have any drywall or studs that I can work with, so this is all it is. And then again, this test that we're working on here, this is only studs right now. Only studs. We'll do anchors later, but for now it's only studs. So now we're going to go ahead and take our anchor here. I mean, not our anchor, our level. Our level is going to help us to determine if our thing is level on the wall. Now, here you can kind of see I don't have a wall to work on, so we're just going to hold it up here. and you can put it anywhere. You can put it on the bottom or the top, but you can look at it here, and we're looking at this bubble. This bubble is going to tell us what to do, and if it's in between the two lines in the middle, then we're good. So we can kind of see that right now it's level. If we move a little bit, now it's level. So that's how you're going to use your level. For this test, I'm not really going to make it too level because, again, I'm only working on this piece of wood here. So what we're actually going to do is take our initial hole that we made for the river plaque, and we're going to use that as our first hole. So the first hole that you make does not really matter too much because you can't really get any level with this so far. So again, first hole does not matter as much. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. The next thing that we're gonna wanna do is look at the back of our plaque here and determine how far the big holes are from each other. So on these, the big holes are gonna be on the left. So it's gonna be this spot and that spot. Those two spots are where we're gonna wanna measure. So I didn't mention this earlier, but you're gonna need a ruler. So we're gonna look at our ruler here, and we'll use inches because I think they're a little easier to understand. I would say they're about 6 1/8 inches. You can maybe get away with 6 inches away from each other. So we're gonna come back to our wall, and we're gonna measure out a little spot that is gonna be 6 inches from the other hole. Now, this is where you're gonna wanna think about using a level, even in your screws. So we're at the first screw, that's at the 0. We're gonna come over here to the 6 1/8 mark. We're gonna put an initial circle there, but we're gonna wanna also have our level here. We're gonna keep on looking. I would say that that's pretty close to level. Again, we're looking at that bubble in the middle. So now we know that our hole right there is pretty good. So we're gonna again take our drill. We're gonna take our drill and we're gonna again drill into our little hole that we marked over here. And then again, remember, this is for studs only. This is not how drywall would act. So now we're gonna take our second screw. We're gonna take our second screw and our Phillips head screwdriver, and we're gonna start to drill this in. Same thing, reasoning with the screwdriver here is you can help judge the depth. Now this is where you're also gonna wanna make sure that you put the screws at about the same depth. If the screws are at different depths, your plaque will not sit flush against the wall. It'll have one side sticking out a little bit further than the other. So I would say that those are about good. So now you're gonna take your plaque and you're gonna line it up with those initial holes on the back. So now that it's lined up, you're gonna slide it to the side, and now it'll sit flush on the wall. So now it's on our wall here, and then we can verify, well, I can turn this right now, but on the wall, you'll verify if it's level. Now, if there was any mistakes made along the way, what you're gonna have to do is take your plaque off of the wall, and determine which distance you'll have to change, because what's gonna have to happen is you're gonna have to change these screws. So one of them will either have to go up or down, determining on if there was any mistakes made in the leveling process. But that is how you'll put any of the other plaques on the wall with those side-by-side keyholes into a stud. Remember, only studs for this steps. Now we're gonna talk about working with drywall. So the first plaque that we're gonna do again is gonna be that river plaque. So we're only gonna need one hole for this one. So we're gonna mark our little spot right here, just like we did all the other ones. And the difference here is we're gonna take our drill with a bigger drill bit. This drill bit is gonna match this pointed end of the anchor. So we're gonna, so we drill in there, and now with drywall, what'll end up having to happen is you can like push it to, I mean, sometimes you could push it farther in, but sometimes you'll need your hammer to kind of tap it in. But once you're at the point where the screws are basically lined up with the wall, now you're gonna take your Phillips head screwdriver and you're going to screw in your anchor. Now, you might need to put a little pressure on it, but eventually it'll take, and you'll screw it all the way in until it's flush with the wall. Now, once it's flush with the wall, you're going to be able to take your screw, and your screw will be able to go in. So now you can just screw up the screw. Okay, well, with my setup here, with not actually having drywall to work with, it doesn't really perform how it should, but the steps will be the same. You drill in the hole, screw in the anchor, and then as you screw in the screw, it'll tighten up and should work. Another trick you could have as well is on the back of your anchor, after you kind of nail it in and it gets far enough in, you can cut off this pointed end so that the screw just goes all the way through. But the process will be the same. And now that the screw is in your plaque with the big hole down, and you'll put it on the screw and then it'll hold up just like that. Again, this isn't exact because I don't have drywall, so it doesn't work like that for me, but again, the steps would be the exact same. So that's how you put in a screw and anchor for the river epoxy plaque into drywall. So now we're going to work with the 2 hole ones. So we already have this one in from the river plaque, so we're just going to kind of work with that in our setup here. So we're going to first take our plaque here, and we're gonna take our ruler and we're gonna measure the distance. If you watched the earlier part of the video, you'll know this is about 6 inches and 1/8. So we're gonna measure that out on our quote-unquote drywall, but again, I only have this cardboard, so we're gonna go from the initial screw, 6 1/8. We'll mark it right, probably right about there. And then again, take your level and put it on 6 1/8, and then we're gonna level this just to check it. Again, we're gonna look for that bubble to be pretty well lined up. Turns out that my dot was a little off, and that's why we check with the level. And then again, we're gonna take our drill and drill through. Now that we have it like that, we can go ahead and move forward with our anchor. This is a broken anchor, but it'll operate just like how we did that one, where it will puncture through all the way, and then once it's all the way through, you'll be able to twist it just like a screw, and eventually the spirals will catch. There we go. And you want it flush with the wall, just like that. And then you're going to take your second screw and you will drill or screw it in to that anchor. Now, as mentioned in the river plaque video, because this is cardboard, it does not act perfectly the same. So I'm not able to screw these screws in all the way without these twisting, but on drywall, they shouldn't twist. They should be in place, and then screwing in will be no issue. So we're just gonna kind of leave it like that and still test our spot here. So we take our plaque, take our holes, and we're gonna line them up just how we had them. So holes lined up, slide it to the side, and now it's going to be secure on your wall. Now again, if this was drywall, it would be a lot better. And same steps, after it's on the wall, you can take your level and put it on the bottom. I would suggest that because it's flat compared to that which isn't. So you can put that, check it, and then again, we're looking to line up that bubble between those 2 lines in the middle. And just like mentioned before in the intro to the hardware and tools, you can use the level app on a phone. That's how you're going to mount any of the other plaques that have 2 side-by-side holes on a wall with drywall.